welcome to another episode of Horrorifica with me, your lovely host, Mercy Grimm. Today, I have a great list of horror movies to cover that have the added twist of being based on true events. So get ready for a dose of shocking, horrific reality, and let's get to our list. First up is Amityville Horror. Now, this story is not solely about the haunting of the Lutz family. To understand why this has supposedly happened, we have to look at the actual killings that took place in the Amityville house. In November of 1974, a troubled man named Ronald DeFeo Jr. murdered his entire family in cold blood as they slept. In total, he killed his parents and his 4 siblings by shooting all of them in their sleep. He then tried to fake finding them dead, and he got some people to come over. He said, "My parents are dead, they're shot, come send help." So he pretended that he just came home and found them that way. However, the police soon realized his claims of a supposed mob hit on his family were false accusations, and thankfully they realized that he in fact was the culprit. This story is pretty messed up, and no wonder this house would have some bad juju. 6 people died in that house, and of course you're going to have some ghosts or some hauntingly paranormal issues. So, now in the movies I'm talking about, in the 1976 movie and the questionably good 2005 remake, we deal with the true accounts of the Lutz family, the first to live in the house since the murders. They claim to have had paranormal events happening in their home, events that, spoiler alert for the movies, led to the family fleeing the house after the father almost tried to kill his entire family with an axe. They never returned to the home to collect their belongings, and they never came back. Nowadays, this house is actually a historic landmark of sorts. A friend of mine who actually grew up in the Suffolk area told me that he saw the house all the time. He's actually within walking distance of it, and he told me that it still has this eerie presence even to this day. So if you want a creepy movie with the very real murders behind it and the supposedly very real hauntings, then check out the Amityville Horror. I recommend that you watch the original movie before watching the remake, because we all know how remakes can be. I don't know if I really care for the remake. I'm very picky. The next movie on our list, Nightmare on Elm Street. So this movie's villain is actually based off of a series of unexplained deaths that took place in the 80s. Wes Craven will actually talk about his research in various interviews that he had. If you want good insight on this topic, there are articles from the 80s as well, the actual articles from the actual events. They're a creepy read though, and they might make you not want to sleep for a few days. Just a warning. So I love the fact that Craven took a lot of inspiration from real life events to make his movies. This can also be seen in the next movie on our list, one that Craven also made, Scream. This movie was based on a real-life murderer, the Gainesville Ripper. At his time of terror, the Ripper would go around and break into houses of college students, brutally murdering them and cutting them up. Craven did to have a signature thing that Ghostface loved to do in the movie, in the first one in particular. He gutted his victims quite a bit, and this was probably reminiscent of the brutality of the Gainesville Ripper's kills. So if you want to read more about him, there are plenty of articles out there, because it wasn't too long ago that this happened. So, not in like the 2000s, obviously. This movie was made in 1996, so gotta go back a little bit. So the next movie on our list, Jennifer's Body. A lot of people don't really know this about Jennifer's Body, but it's based off of a real ritualistic sacrifice of a teenage girl in the mid-90s. People can't get past how campy the movie is, and in my opinion, it's campy in a good way. Just go listen to my top 10 list, where I talk about why I love this movie so much and why it's one of my top 10. I'll leave a link for that in the description. So, they never took the time to look into the movie in more depth. But if you actually look up the movie, it's stated on the Wikipedia page that this was actually based off of a real-life murder. So Elise Paler was murdered by a metal band called Hatred, who wanted to sacrifice a virgin girl to Satan so that they would get better at playing the guitar. This is literally the same idea and motive of the band in the movie. though there's no supernatural happening or demonic possession. Spoiler alert for Jennifer's body. At least Paler was actually, her body was missing for months before they actually found her out in the area where she was killed. The next movie on our list, The Texas Chainsaw Massacre. This is the original one from the 70s. The movie event states in the opening credits that it's actually based off of a series of true events, but these true events greatly differ from the actual plot of the movie itself. So this crazy cannibalistic nightmare fuel of a movie is actually based off of a man named Ed Gein, who would grave rob and then lead up to murder women to wear their skin. He did this because he was obsessed with his overbearing and religious mother who died and then left him all alone. And this made him spiral out of control, and his already existent schizophrenia convinced him that the only way he could be close to his mother was to literally crawl into her skin. This led him to kill 2 women, and prior to killing those 2 women, grave rob many women's graves for their skin to make a woman suit. He also used the remainder of the skin to make furnishings for his farmhouse. So we can kind of see the parallels between Gein and the movie, because Leatherface does have his signature female skin that he wears during the dinner scene of the movie, and he seems to be a big fan of that skin. He even puts like a little makeup, dresses it up a little bit, And then also their house, it's really interesting. There are actually pictures of Ed Gein's home, some black and white pictures of his original house from the police pictures, and you can see how well they mirrored his house to look like the set pieces from Texas Chainsaw. It's actually quite accurate. There are pieces of furniture that literally have skin coverings on them and such, like chairs made out of skin. And if you just look at those pictures, they're kind of gruesome. I will link them in the description if anyone's interested. I recommend not the faint at heart look at them, because this is a real crime that did happen and it's very messed up and you might not be interested in it. But for those of you who are seeking that kind of imagery, I will leave them in the description. Now, the last movie on our list is The Town That Dreaded Sundown. Now, I'm talking about the original, not that really shitty 2014 movie that they made that was sort of loosely based off of the original movie but made absolutely no sense and the plot was garbage. This one is a not so very well-known movie, and that shitty remake does not help it. The original movie is amazing at cementing fear into people. This movie is based off of the Texarkana Moonlight murders committed by the Phantom Killer in the 70s, the identity of whom we still don't know to this day. The movie isn't completely accurate to the kills of the actual victims, but it is accurate to how many people died and to the fact that the killer was never caught. Now, in the movie, they did try to glorify, or not glorify, but like hype up and add more suspense. So they did have a chase scene with the killer at the end of the movie. That did not take place in real life, but they had to have that suspenseful moment. And then the very end of the movie was extremely meta because it showed the killer, presumably the killer, going to the viewing of his own movie. Because this movie is so meta that it has a movie of itself within its movie. So, movieception. You know I love making jokes like that here. So, this is something that we don't see in slasher movies today, the idea that the killer isn't caught. We don't see it very often, so it's refreshing, but it's also a terrifying reminder that the killer was never caught in real life either. Well, I hope you enjoyed this list. I love doing these fun lists, and if you want more lists, give me some ideas in the comments below. I love hearing from y'all. I have part 2 of my movie talk for the Final Girls in the works, and that will come out later next week. Also, if you're interested in hearing some more about extensive talks about some of these movies and their true crime counterparts, then I highly suggest you check out my true crime podcast, Coffee and Crime, link in the description. I did a whole series of episodes on these movies' crimes, and I talk extensively about them in detail. So thanks for listening to another Horrorifica video, And if you like this video, please give it some love with a thumbs up. If you like my content and want more of it and want updates, make sure you sub and hit that notification bell. Have a great rest of your day, everyone, and until next time.